All right. Well, I'm sure we'll have a few more folks join us in a few minutes, but I think we can go ahead and get started with our introductions and kind of setting our expectations for the day. Welcome, everyone. I'm Susie Lee. I'm the Programs Director at Forefront. If you're not familiar with Forefront, we are the State Association for Nonprofits, and we're the Regional Association for Grant Makers, and we also represent nonprofit allies like consultants and other partners throughout the community. So Forefront is a great place to come when you're thinking about digital giving, when you're thinking about board governance, when you're thinking about really anything to do with managing and having successful nonprofits and the tools that help you reach your mission. So today, I'm really excited about this program. This is our all-star panel. You'll notice that it is titled Digital Giving. So Forefront got involved with Giving Tuesday long ago in 2014. And now we have shifted a little bit. We still like to help folks be ready for Giving Tuesday, but we also have digital giving support for year round. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. I wanted to share with everybody what we're planning to cover today, just so you can be ready. And also, well, before I talk about this, I did want to be sure to share the housekeeping notes of this is a really pretty casual conversations. It's one of our less structured, although somewhat structured programs. So please, at any time, feel free to pop a question into the chat. You're able to unmute yourselves if you want to connect that way. We really do want to have lots of conversation. The biggest piece of open conversation will be, as you see, kind of at the end of the program. But if you have something that you want to bring up, please, like I said, feel free to share that at any time. I'm also joined by my colleague, Lily. Do you want to say hi?
Hello, good morning, everybody. I'm Lily Blauen. I am the program coordinator at Forefront, and I work closely with Susie to help curate and provide that support for our nonprofit partners and really our partners all across the state. And I'm so happy to see you all here and to be here today. And I always like to point out that I'm zooming in from Rock Island, Illinois, because I know that building a vibrant sector for all the people of Illinois really is at the forefront of our mission. So it's fun to see everybody tuning in from different places, and great to be able to collaborate with all of you.
Awesome, thanks, Lily. And we do have a number of folks on here, so I don't think we're going to do a round robin of introductions, but we'd love to hear if you would like to share your name, your pronouns if you wish to, your organization, share that in the chat and get to see also where you are in the state. That would be great. So today's agenda, we will start with some 2020 context. The folks over at Giving Tuesday, the sort of national/international headquarters, they do a great job of bringing together data that we can all use. So I wanted to share that for everybody. Of course, our main event is our all-star panelists. Kaylee and Evan will introduce them in a few minutes. Then I'll hop back on and share a few strategies beyond social media. That's probably the topic I get the most questions about. And then, like I said, the bulk of our conversation today will just be open discussion. So we hope to learn from you as much as we are able to share. All right, let us dive in. So of course, Giving Tuesday this year is November 30th. Feels like it's just around the corner. Some of these national numbers that I really wanted to share, the US awareness rate. So the folks that say, if you say Giving Tuesday to them, they go, oh yeah, I know what that is. That's 64% of all Americans that are aware that it exists. And that translates to about 33 million adults. So that is a lot of folks that are participating and aware. I always like to remind folks that Giving Tuesday is special in a number of ways. Of course, the biggest one is it is a movement of generosity. And so many people say that they join, they make donations on that day because they want to feel like they're part of something bigger. There was a lot of nervousness that the pandemic in 2020 would decrease that interest in giving. And of course, there were many, many folks that were unable to because of job losses and other hardships. But for folks that still had the financial ability to, or the ability to volunteer or donate time or other goods and services and their hearts and generosity, the actual participation in Giving Tuesday in 2020 was still higher than it was in 2019. And they really attributed that to being part of that movement. So as I mentioned, 84% of the folks that were aware of Giving Tuesday actually made a donation. And 52% of those folks say they made a donation because they want to be a part of something bigger. So really connecting to that story and connecting to the need. The folks at Giving Tuesday often say, generous people are generous. And I always love that, because what they mean by that is the idea that there is a giving limit that when we look at our whole society, that at some point people just phase out and they can't give donations anymore. Of course, that's true at an individual level, but at the community, we have never seen that limit hit. And that's something really, I think, amazing to think about, is the potential for our community to give both financially and in terms of time and generosity. We've never seen that limit hit, even after natural disasters, after the pandemic. It just hasn't happened. All right, and this was another one. We've had a lot of questions about this in the past, and this is the first year that I saw this number and really found it helpful, because I think folks are super, super focused on, like, I have to have all new donors on Giving Tuesday. It's a failure if they're not all new donors. I often hear that amongst folks that are newer to Giving Tuesday. But in reality, now that it's been around for a while, 75% of the donors on Giving Tuesday are repeat donors and 25% are new donors. So just to give folks a little bit of benchmarking so you can compare where your work is compared to the national average. All right, so that is what I have for our general benchmarking. I'm just going to check the chat real quick and see if there are any questions that have come in. Thanks all for the folks that have introduced yourselves. Very excited. And all right, I'm not seeing any questions, so I don't want to delay any further. Evan, I will stop sharing and pass it to you.
Okay, thank you, Susie, appreciate it. Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm happy to be here. My name is Evan Finnemore, and I am the manager for development and partner outreach for Illinois Partners for Human Service, which is a coalition in Illinois of about 850 human service organizations from all over the state. I'm going to talk a little bit today about our graphics-driven online campaign, mostly through social media, that we utilize for Giving Tuesday. So I've broken it down here a little bit to explain what our goal was and what our challenges, and then tell you how we tried to meet our goals and overcome these obstacles. Our goal was to create a Giving Tuesday campaign that would stand out in a crowded field, because as we all know, on Giving Tuesday, everyone is competing for dollars. So you want to try to create something that makes you stand apart a little bit, so that we do that through our graphics campaign. We wanted to tell a story about, not just about who we are, but about what human services are and who they serve and why they're important. Because we're a coalition and we work with over 850 other nonprofits across the state, we want to also encourage people to give to those folks as well. We're not, although we're all competing for the same dollars, we want to encourage giving across the spectrum, not just to us, but to the organizations that we support, because we're kind of to promote the idea that we're all in this together, and we want people to give across, not just to us, but to everyone. And we wanted to connect ourselves to the broader purpose of Giving Tuesday, and also just for our internal mechanisms with our board and with our staff, we wanted to create things that would be easy for people to share themselves, either on their own social network platforms or through emails or other means, depending on their comfort level. The challenges that we face at Illinois Partners is that we do, because of the nature of our work, we're not a direct service provider, so people don't always understand what we do, and so we have a very limited base of individual donors. So that's always a challenge for us to reach new individual donors. Advocacy is not something that is easily understood by everyone. If you don't get it, it doesn't really resonate the way that direct service does resonate. And then in terms of our grant, we have been grateful to be recipients of a matching grant from RRF Foundation for Aging. It's a matching grant opportunity up to $5,000. And this is our third or fourth year of being in that matching grant program. So our messaging has to include some positive messaging about older people. So we need to, in our images and messaging, have that under consideration. And then we also like to acknowledge RRF as much as we can. So the approach that we chose to use last year was, there's a pretty branded, recognizable Giving Tuesday campaign broadly across the nation, and for all of us to use. I'm sure many of you have seen the collateral that they share, all of the graphics and logos and messaging. So we decided to build off of the graphics and branded campaign that the broader Giving Tuesday campaign shared. And our approach was to create a timeline so that we had a story with an arc and a campaign with an arc and a beginning, a middle, and an end, and also a timeline that would help all of our stakeholders understand what the process was. So the arc that we created was, the beginning of that arc was to have a save the date that we put out online. As you can see from these images, we're utilizing all the Giving Tuesday logos so people know this is part of something bigger. And then on the first day, we have the matching grant that we have been a part of has a 2-week time period. So we kick it off on the beginning on 2 weeks out, or a week out from Giving Tuesday, and then it extends a week beyond Giving Tuesday. And then every other day we do additional messaging online, and with more messages on actual Giving Tuesday than other days throughout the campaign. So we have the save the date, we have the today's the day, here we go. And then we created messages that would use some, because repeat donors are a component that you don't want to not pay attention to, we tried to use some images and messages that we had used in past campaigns that tied to other things related to Illinois Partners. Some of these photographs on the bottom images that you see on the screen were part of Our Human Story, which was a campaign that we did 2 years ago about human services. So we tried to use those images to kind of jog people's memories who might have seen this before. And then these messages were all designed, Together We Give is on every one of our messages. And that was the theme for all of Giving Tuesday, and is again this year, I've noticed. And these are the broader messages that we use. Together we give for today and the future, for each other, for our communities, to protect our most important resource, to tie us to Illinois. So those were the broader messages that we used. Then we wanted, as an advocate for human services in Illinois, we wanted to tie ourselves to human services and the other human service partners in our coalition. So we had a few messages that were specifically about that. And then we had the specific messages about what Illinois Partner does. This first graphic at the bottom is probably the best example of that, where it explains that we lead a coalition, that we advocate for funding efficiency and equity, and that we're building a movement and a collective voice to accomplish this. So those were the messages that we used to talk about our work specifically. On the last day of the campaign, to kind of complete that arc, we had this is it, the final day, let's get us over the line. And then, of course, after the campaign, on a few occasions, we ran our thank you to our donors and to everyone who gave us support and supported all the organizations that are important to them. the lessons that we learned in this process, broken down into the simplest, terms, is that a timeline is a great tool for if you're planning a social media campaign. A timeline is a great tool, not just to have for your staff, but to have for board members that you want to help you do this, other stakeholders, friends that you want to share. It's good for them to understand what the timing is. So if maybe they're sharing your messages on days that you're not posting new ones, so that there's a constant presence online in some form or another. We really found it helpful to have this themed campaign that allowed us to be consistent. We sent out some emails to past donors, and we have some board members who were more comfortable using digital in their digital fundraising to do emails instead of social media. So we provided them with kind of a toolkit of the images that they could use, and like a special letterhead for an email or template for an email that had the same imaging, so it was consistent. To that end, make sure you give everyone instructions. Social media is not intuitive for everyone, and as a matter of fact, it's intimidating to a lot of people. So don't assume that people understand how to do what you're asking them to do, and just always provide instructions and make sure you're available to talk someone through the process in case they need that kind of support. It's always good to have, as I said, it's always good to have a file of graphics that's a shared file, so that if people want to use the graphics in other forms that are helping you out, they can use them themselves and create their own messaging. And then the one thing that we would like to do differently in our next campaign is that we're going to do some paid boosts to see if we can broaden our reach. As I said, we don't have an extensive base of individual donors, and it's something that we constantly are trying to figure out how to expand our reach. And from some conversations with other folks that have had success with the boost, we're going to try to do that. As a small organization with a small budget, quite honestly, our goal each year is just to do a little better than the year before, which I'm happy to say we have had that success, that we are getting smarter and stronger and doing better each year. But trying to find new ways to achieve that and be innovative, and as I said, stand out in the crowd are the biggest challenges in that regard. But we're chugging along, and a graphics campaign has been a really useful tool for us in branding ourselves for Giving Tuesday. I think that covers it. So I'll stop sharing now. And I'm assuming we're going to do questions after Kaylee goes, but so I will mute myself now.
Yes, Evan, thank you so much. And Kaylee, I'll go ahead and let you share and provide an interlude. I just wanted to emphasize, Evan, that I really loved how you created that sense of urgency on the day of, but still had it open. We at Forefront were really surprised. I think it was back in 2017 or 2018, we realized that we were one of only 3 major campaigns in the country that only collected donations in that 24-hour window. We made the change. The average across the country is a 16-day window for collecting donations. And I don't remember exactly the percentage, but I know it was over a 25% increase just in catching those early birds and stragglers and making sure everybody had the opportunity to give.
Well, there are 2 things, and I'll just add, having that extended time period allows you to have a different kind of arc. Like, it would be hard to accomplish what we tried to do in 24 hours. There also, I know myself included, I make a list of the organizations that I want to give to on Giving Tuesday. And if somebody has a glitch on their platform, or I get distracted, or I'm myself guilty of not getting there on the day. So it's a kindness to your donors. And it also just allows you to have the urgency is different. And it also allows you to have messaging on different days. So on actual Giving Tuesday, you're not depending, especially the way we have recently learned even more about how social media works. It gives you a better chance of being seen because you may not make the cut on the algorithm for that day. So it just broadens your prospects on appealing to donors.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, Kaylee, tell us about this beautiful image.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me today. My name is Kaylee Trammell. I am the Festival of Trees Administrator at Quad City Arts here in Rock Island. And last year, we made a big pivot with that event and turned it into an all digital giving campaign and holiday special. So this graphic we created because we did do a 1 hour special on a local television station that basically featured local artists, dance troupes, interviews from local stakeholders that are involved with our organization. And we also did pre-recorded interviews because we were doing all of this amidst the pandemic. So we had to get really creative with the way that we did this. So we put together a holiday special and essentially made it super easy for people to give. You'll notice the date was not actually Giving Tuesday. So we did a digital giving day that was not correlated with Giving Tuesday. So I'm glad that Evans was very focused on Giving Tuesday. Ours was much more just digital giving on our own day because this coordinated with what our constituents and our stakeholders were most familiar with. So that's kind of why we did the timing the way that we did. I'm not going to talk about the holiday special because that was sort of a very unique situation and not something I necessarily suggest to everyone to do for your giving day, but it was really fun to put together and I'd be happy to chat with anyone who wants to try to make it happen. But I'm going to really focus on our day of giving. I can get my slides to advance, that is. So, all right, let's try this one. There we go. So I'm going to go through from start to finish how we prepared. So we knew that we were going to have to pivot this event. So we made the announcement in early October. We announced it in a number of ways. We announced it via email to all of our constituents, via social media, and we asked our stakeholders to share that information for us. So we shared it on our page and then alerted our constituents and our stakeholders and asked them to share that for us as well. And then we did a press release, of course, to let everyone know what we were doing for this day. We equipped our board, staff, volunteers, and constituents by putting together a stakeholder toolkit, which I have some information examples of here in the next couple of slides, with everything that we felt like they needed from start to finish, what we thought might be useful for them. We secured major donors with matching funds to help kind of increase excitement on our giving day and help us kind of boost our fundraising for that event. And then we created an email and a social media plan. That way we knew what was going on and we could share that with our folks who are going to help us out and help us make this happen. So our stakeholder toolkit had a ton of information, more information probably than they even wanted, but we wanted to make sure we were really thorough. So we started at the top with the nuts and bolts of how to use our giving software. We did an how-to document with screenshots of how it works. We did a how-to video of how to set up a giving campaign, how to give, how to encourage others to give. We did a fundraising basics sheet for them because we assume that these folks have never had to ask anyone else for money. So what we wanted to do is equip our board and our staff and our volunteers to be able to fundraise for us on our behalf. So to create their own fundraiser, to be able to reach out to their circles of influence, which is far beyond where we could reach. So the farther out our circles go, the farther out our fundraising reaches. And so that's what we wanted to equip them to be able to do. So we just assumed that they'd never done anything like this before and gave them all the information that they need, a communication template. And outside of just giving them what to put in there, we put the why of like, why do you share your story? What types of questions should you ask yourself whenever you're trying to figure out, how do I even communicate what my connection is with this organization? So really trying to make it easy for them and help them come up with their own story about how our organization has affected them and affected our community as well. We gave them some impact highlights so that they were really easy to copy and paste into a social media post, into a text message, into regular conversation, just so that they know all of the programs that we do and they didn't have to guess. And then, of course, reminding them and reminding ourselves to thank anyone who donates through their campaign as well. So we wanted to make sure that they felt equipped with everything that they need. And we wanted to hype them up because we're asking folks to help us with this campaign. And so we wanted to thank them for all of the support that they're providing for us. And the excitement that we have goes out to them, and then it goes out to their circles of influence. So we thought it was really important to make sure that we were really excited and really supporting them as much as we could as we went forward. So on the Giving Day, we did a number of things setting up our campaign. But one of the biggest things that we did is we gave concrete examples of how their gift will have a real impact on real people. So you can see here, we've got a photo from one of our visiting artists who came in, and we have some of the kids with them. And then in the caption, we've got, your gift of just $10 can give one student our education experience next year. So for every giving level we asked folks to give at, there was a concrete example of how their funds might be able to help us make a real impact on real people in the next year, which was really useful for us specifically because the $10 is a really easy entry point for a lot of folks. So $10 is a pretty nominal amount. You can get a cup of coffee and a bagel in the morning for more than that. And so $10 seems like a pretty good place to start for us. We did make it super easy to give. We wanted people to be able to have an entry point as far as cost. So to be able to give a low amount, we wanted to have it to be easy. So they could text to give, they could give online, they could give through a giving campaign or a social media link. So we wanted to make it as easy as possible for people to give and have them do as few clicks as possible. Because the more clicks that we have to do, the less likely it is that we will continue on with the process of giving. I always say that if I could give with Apple Pay, I would do it in a heartbeat because it's just one click and a thumbprint and it's all done. So the fewer clicks we could get folks to our giving page, the better. We also asked some key supporters to help us by creating I Give Because videos. So we reached out to some folks who have had a visiting artist from our organization come in or had some sort of connection with us, and asked them just to create a quick 2 or 3 minute video talking about why they give and why it's important for people to support our organization as part of our campaign. So we shared those out in email, we shared them via social media, and those were really fun and really effective because it was fun for them to be able to share that as well. We also did as many live streams as possible with our local media folks. So I grabbed this really unflattering screenshot of myself doing an interview with one of our local media stations talking about our giving campaign. And again, going through how easy it is for folks to give. We also just didn't take ourselves too seriously. So we are an arts organization. We think that giving should be fun. So we tried to make it as fun as possible to give. One of the things that was most fun for us this year is we had a donor who wanted to make it easy for folks to give if they maybe didn't have the finances last year to do it. It was a tough year for everybody. And so they wanted people to be able to feel generous without having to make a financial contribution. And so we did a social media share hour, our holiday cheer hour. And for every share, they matched up to $10, up to 250 shares. So that really encouraged folks, number one, to share our campaign out and get it out to as many people as possible. But it also was a chance for us to allow folks who wanted to be generous to to just hit a couple of buttons and then have that $10 donated on their behalf. So we were really excited about this option. And it was something that was really popular and was fun for us to be able to do. And then of course, we had to make it worth the share. So we had kind of a funny video of us doing that as well. We also selected some key community leaders, and we had a special gift delivered to them by our executive director. So he's a great sport, and he dressed up as an elf and went around and delivered cookies to some of our leaders in our community who were also fundraising on our behalf as well. So trying to make as much contact with folks in the digital realm as we could. And then, of course, we wanted to make sure that our donors were well thanked for all of their support. So we have students who work with us as apprentices, and we asked them to create some specific thank you notes for us to share with our donors at a certain giving level. And then, of course, thank you emails, letters, and follow up to our new donors and reminding them that their gifts did make a difference. Last, after Giving Day, we learned that one of the things that we want to encourage folks to do is more team fundraising. And we have a lot of corporate partners. And so we created in that Stakeholders Toolkit, essentially a corporate fundraising packet for them to encourage their teams to work together, have a competition amongst themselves. So we'd like to increase that in the future. We did find that fewer, more impactful social media posts would work better for our audience. So like Evan was saying, sometimes the algorithm kind of gets you if you post too many times in one day. So I think that if we focused on fewer, more impactful social media, we would have seen an increase in our engagement. And then collecting quality information throughout the year makes compiling it for a Giving Day much easier. So as we went through this process, we kind of realized the spots where maybe we had gaps in the information that we had collected from our other programs. And so that was an opportunity for us to say, hey, let's try to hit these few spots in the next year so that we have good information to share with everyone. That's it. I'll stop sharing now.
Awesome. Kaylee, thank you so much. And I popped in a couple of, actually several links about some of those alternative payment options like Google Pay, Apple Pay, and Venmo. We know that Giving Tuesday is very popular among younger folks, and about 50 million people are making donations on those platforms each year. So it's a great avenue to learn a little bit more about. All right. We had a question come in. Can you share more on collecting quality information? I think our gaps get wider each year, especially now with everyone working remote. Great question.
Yeah, so for us, we have a pretty wide range of programming. We work with a lot of students. We work with a lot of schools, organizations, things of that nature. And so with so much programming, sometimes the good information from those gets lost. And so we want to be more strategic about what we collect and how we collect it, and ensuring that we have good graphics to go alongside that. So we want to make sure we have photographs. We want to make sure we have effective stories from those folks. So for us, it's a matter of reaching out to teachers and students and the people who have been involved in our programs, and asking them to be able to express what their experience was with us, because we can talk about how great we are all day long, but it's when someone else talks about your programming and the effect that it has had on them that it's really impactful.
A couple questions come in about the number of social media posts that can happen. It looks like the number of posts that can happen in one day without algorithm suppression. And there's also, we notice more engagement later in the day, afternoon and evening. And I can verify that one with some national data. The most common time of day for folks to donate, it's kind of two, actually I can give you the top three in order. The biggest one is evening, so kind of the happy hour, 5 to 7 p.m., right before people go to bed. That's kind of clumped all as the evening. The second most common is in the morning before they go to work. So that like 7 a.m., 6 a.m. block. The third most common is during the lunch hour. So for most folks, like between 11 and 1. So if you are going to target ads during the day, those are the three most impactful times. And then I'll turn it over to Kaylee and Evan for how many posts per day your campaigns did.
We tried to do, we did it in past years, we've done more and not had quite as much success. So we tried to do one every other day during our campaign, and then, but had kind of strategic outreach to folks to share posts on days that we weren't posting them. But we have a very kind of insular network. So we knew that the folks that we were targeting, although it would reach some people in their personal networks with whom we didn't have connection, it would keep it kind of in the same zone as far as the people that we wanted to see it, who we knew would care about our work, would also see it. It's, as I said before, with us, it's a challenge in that without being a direct service provider, I mean, you couldn't have two more opposite panelists here to talk about this today, because obviously Kaylee's organization is an arts organization, beautiful visuals in all sorts of opportunities for engagement that's fun. I don't want to say that Illinois Partners is not fun, but it's not the same kind of resonance. So you're going to have to appeal to a different kind of community. And so you have to leverage people within your network to help you kind of reach the people that you think will care.
Yeah, our campaign, we posted 1 to 2 times a day leading up to our actual giving day, just because that is what we do kind of on a regular basis. We share a lot because we have a lot to share. So we share pretty frequently on our pages. And then when our giving day hit, we probably doubled that, probably to 4 to 5 posts a day, which was probably too many, honestly. We kind of hit that threshold where our posts were kind of being hidden by the algorithm. So 1 to 2 a day worked really well for us. We were getting a lot of shares. We were getting a lot of engagement with folks. But yeah, once we kind of hit that day, we sort of realized as the day went on that our posts were starting to get hidden. And so even with the help of our volunteers and our staff and everyone who was assisting us with fundraising, sharing those out, sometimes they just got lost. So with the exception of our holiday cheer hour, which was really successful with the shares and the donations that went alongside that, for the most part, our engagement kind of decreased a little bit the more that we shared on that day.
All right. Well, as we are still in COVID times, I have a sick kiddo, and so I'm going to jump a little bit here and share some of these strategies, and then I'm going to have to disappear for a minute. But to add a little bit more fodder for our conversation as we move forward, I wanted to share some strategies beyond social media, because of course, there are a lot of things you can do. These have been incredible examples of what you can do online. And that really is kind of the meat and potatoes of digital giving days. But there are some fun ideas outside of that. So some of them, of course, are kind of traditional ideas that we've seen for other types of events throughout the year that you can incorporate into your digital giving day strategy. I know a lot of organizations even that say they're not going to focus on donations at all on Giving Tuesday itself and just do a gratitude drive. You can talk about, of course, right now, volunteering is a little bit tricky depending on what community you're in and how safe folks are feeling being out and about. but these are just some of the other broad ideas. And then digging into some specific examples, this one, especially these images here of these branded face masks, I've seen them most commonly related to school spirit teams. So, you know, instead of selling candy bars or cookies or what have you, there are folks that are, I think, brilliantly flipping this around and saying, well, if we have to deal with these masks, let's at least make it worthwhile for our school and our organization. So doing fundraisers of selling spirit themed masks, you could definitely do that for your organization. And then one that's even a little bit more like bold, I would say, this picture down in the right-hand corner, scan for good vibes. That is a QR code that goes directly to a giving option. And of course, that you can't see it here, but on the side, it has the logo of the organization. And I think the idea is you're just so kind of surprised that you see a QR code on someone's face that you're going to ask them, what's that? And then they'll have the opportunity to tell you about the organization. So a little bit interesting, a little bit creative, and sometimes that's what does the trick. A few other ideas that I really enjoyed hearing about: a virtual 5K. I think we've seen lots of those. Virtual book clubs. This one was set up as, instead of a walkathon, it was kind of like a readathon. And folks that were supporting the organization, they were members of this book club. So it wasn't a huge campaign, it was relatively small, but they reached out to their family and friends to sponsor them for all the pages they read on the Digital Giving Day. So I thought those were fun, a little bit out of the box ideas. An oldie but a goodie. This is from the original Giving Tuesday campaign in Baltimore. I should say from the first year in Baltimore. It originated at the 92nd Y in New York. But the first year in Baltimore that Giving Tuesday was out, they had these love notes to Baltimore, and people went out, and it wasn't about donations at all. It was just about giving and love for the community. And they put these truck messages all over the city. Some were about organizations, and some were just like this one that just said, love note to Baltimore, and just wrote nice things. People got really into it. There were more than 1,000 volunteers that ended up being involved in that project because, again, going back to that idea of people just wanting to be a part of something good that's bigger than themselves. This is another oldie but a goodie, but I love this one. I've shared it a million times. So if you've been to many of my presentations, forgive me for sharing it again, but I love it so much. Memphis Rocks. So they teamed up with a local radio station. It was a rock station. And they had these, you can see in the, let's see, bottom right-hand corner, this very animated person. They had painting parties where folks decorated rocks and then they hid them all over the city. And so you can see on the back, again, we're using those QR codes. And again, this date back in 2016. So this is a little bit dated, but you could totally still do it. They had just pieces of paper with the information. This was originally a live event that happened, and you couldn't, until the day of, you didn't find out where the event was unless you found a rock. So it created that kind of sense of urgency, sense of adventure and fun. People were doing scavenger hunts, and the way they put the information on here so that it was legible was it was just printed pieces of paper. And then they used Mod Podge glue. For anybody who's not familiar with that, it's basically just glue, Elmer's glue, essentially, really. And so it sealed the message on there so that you could still take a picture of the QR code and get the information. So they had an element of community, an element of creativity, an element of kind of adventure and fun. And it was a real live thing that happened out in the world. I love this idea. And then this one was from 2020, and it's actually an example from the UK, but it's another one that I really enjoyed. I've heard from some folks that have tried the phone tree phenomenon and not found it to be helpful, but I think this one was a little bit different than how I've heard it from some other examples. So theirs was very old school. they got folks into small teams. So that would usually be like 4 or 5 folks either in a chat together, all making the phone calls and cheering each other on, or physically in the same space. And they did it like a chain letter. So when you made a phone call, you were supposed to reach out to at least 20 of your friends and encourage them to reach out to one more. And by the end of their giving day, they had 1,200 first-time donors from that campaign. So something that's just out of the box that we're not really expecting. I think, again, the really key things about this one being successful, one, they weren't cold calls. They were individuals calling their own friends and family and contacts. And then just the kind of new/oldness of it, of doing an old school phone tree, but also being a little bit out of the box for what we're typically doing. So these are just some of the creative ideas I wanted to add to the conversation as we get going some more. And one last link, I know some folks are familiar that Forefront has in the past partnered with GiveGab. They have a year-round communication guide to support digital giving and stewardship of donors all year round. And I'm a big fan of that resource, so I wanted to be sure to share that one. So I'll pop that in the link, and I'm going to turn over the conversation to Lily and all of you, and hopefully I'll be back soon.
Good luck, Susie. We're rooting for you. I'm curious, since Susie just shared so many great examples of kind of thinking outside the box, and Kaylee and Evan, both of your organizations really were very specific in your strategy, and I think intentional in thinking about how to engage your communities in a way that wasn't just impactful for your campaign, but that kind of represented your organization or your organizational values or even personality. So I'm curious, just to open up our group discussion, what other creative things people have tried in the past with your campaigns, or what are some examples that you've seen that you thought were really inspiring or really stood out to you that might be good for the benefit of the group here? And feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like to speak directly, or you can share that in the chat and I'll be happy to read it out for you.
Well, I'll share one other strategy that has worked for an organization for which I'm on the board of an arts organization where I live. And as part of our Giving Tuesday campaign last year, an artist donated a piece of a poster artist donated a poster that was designed specifically about the art scene where I live. And for every donation that was made for $50 or more, each donor received that poster. And that compelled giving for this little fledgling arts organization that was unprecedented for us. Mm-hmm. So that was having you want people to give because they want to give to you. But it does, if you can provide some token of your appreciation, sometimes that compels people, particularly if you're an organization like an arts organization that might have collateral that's appealing to people.
That's a great idea. I've seen a couple of organizations do something similar, or like Kaylee, your example with the postcards or the cards. Christina, and not to put you on the spot, but since I know that in all of your fundraising, I always love getting a thank you card from KCCDD because it comes from your clients. Would you share a little bit about the success you've had with that? And
yeah. Our organization serves adults who have developmental disabilities, and something that they really enjoy doing is creating art. And so especially if somebody paints something, we turn those into note cards, and then those are our thank yous to all of our donors. So we also do like the tax receipt thank yous and stuff, but it's really exciting to get something a little more personalized than just your generic letter on an 8.5 by 11 sheet. Thanks, Lily.
Yeah, thank you. I always love getting my card in the mail. Anybody else last year, if you participated, or even in years prior, we know this one's kind of a strange one. We're not quite in the same situation we were in last year, but we're certainly not where we were in 2019. So you certainly can talk about what you've done before, or maybe even what you're thinking about.
An idea that we tossed around before we landed on the holiday special, and an organization that I was on the board for before we moved up to the Quad Cities, did something really neat with their digital giving campaign. It was a theater, and they essentially were trying to raise money for a capital project that they were doing, but it could be, a giving day situation. But for every X amount of dollars that you donated, you were able to upload an image of yourself, of your family, of a memory you have at the theater. And all of those images were compiled basically into a digital collage. And so the collage showed kind of the image of the capital campaign they were working on. So we kind of like went through this thought process trying to figure out how could that be effective for us. And we thought about all kinds of things, but I think it would be really exciting for donors to be able to make a gift and see themselves as part of something bigger, and to come together and to create an image of something that is supportive of your organization or something like that. So that's something that I think is really cool. I'd love to see someone do that again, because it was really impactful. It was really fantastic. They hit their goal and surpassed it. So the community really responded well to that.
Excellent. Anybody else see or try something that you thought was unique or really stood out to you?
Another thing that Illinois Partners has done in the past was that we have timed some other things to coincide with Giving Tuesday. So a few years ago, we did a promotional video that was about the value of human services and to the value to everyone, regardless of whether or not you utilize human services. And we launched that video and all the PR around it to coincide with Giving Tuesday. So we had a little excitement to generate about something that we could share with our community. And that was a good tool for us. And part of the reason why, and we've done that for a couple of years, and part of the reason why we had to come up with a different way to do our campaign last year was because we didn't have another thing to launch. So we had to have a different approach.
I see. I'm curious, going back to some of the questions that were coming in during the presentation, particularly about kind of collecting data. And I'm curious, what are the data points that either Kaylee or Evan that you were looking at throughout Giving Tuesday, or that you are looking at now to prepare? And that question is really open to anybody. What is the type of data that you do collect, or that you'd like to collect, and maybe you're not sure where to start or where to find it?
Sure. So like I mentioned, as far as collecting data across our organization, it helped us find gaps in just the story that we're trying to tell, and the type of information that we need to collect year round to do so. But from our giving campaign specifically, obviously we collected the number of new donors that we had, and specifically tracking over the past year. I'm trying to look at, okay, so we have the set of new donors, how have they engaged with us since then? Have they come to an event? Have they gone to a concert? Have they supported our programs in another way? Are they, how are they engaging with us now, and how are we encouraging them to continue to engage with us going forward? Have they become volunteers? Anything that has kind of continued their engagement with our organization. And then also seeing our donors who made a gift to the giving campaign who maybe haven't given in the year prior. or in the 2 years prior or the 3 years prior who were suddenly re-engaged with us through the giving campaign, and how we can engage them again in a way that is effective for them, because obviously something about our giving campaign sparked an interest in them. And so we want to continue to engage them in a way that is effective for them, and asking them those type of questions about how they want to give and how they want to be engaged.
That's great. And we know that fundraising, right, is all about relationship building. So it's important to not just to have new donors, but what are you doing after they engage? How are you cultivating? I don't know if I like that word, but how are you strengthening that relationship over time? Curious how other people in the room are engaging their donors after their giving days, or how they're planning to, if that's something that you've given thought to, how you've used that information. And again, feel free to unmute and join the discussion in real time or share in the chat. All right, well, I'll go back to another question then that came up, which was about getting new donors. So we're talking about what you do after you get them, but how do you get that first touch? So again, to Kaylee or Evan or anybody in the room, what do you think is was the most successful element in terms of engaging new donors? And I would say this is for your giving day or even outside of that. How are you bringing in new supporters?
One thing that we try to do is with our board, we try to get our board to activate their own. I mean, this isn't like groundbreaking strategy. I think everyone tries to do this to a certain extent, but we try to engage our board to appeal to their personal networks. And it's an interesting challenge for us because our board is made up mostly of executive directors of nonprofit organizations. And so they have their own giving priorities in their work. So to talk to them about thinking about who within their own networks they might help us engage. And then also through, honestly, through media, to try to get coverage in the media that puts our name out there that then might appeal to different constituents who haven't heard of us before. Because, you know, as I mentioned before, it's tricky for us to communicate our value. So we have to rely sometimes on surrogates who can help explain within their networks to compel giving.
Yeah, and just to build off of what Evan said, I think that for us, the strategy was pretty similar, as far as, like I said, equipping our stakeholders with all of the information that they need, and really encouraging them to just tell their story of their engagement with our organization, and why they see value in being involved with us. For us as an organization, we have folks who have been supporters of us for decades, who have been involved with our organization and supporting our values. And so we value that, and we want to respect their engagement with us and their experience with our organization. And so equipping them and encouraging them to tell the story that they have was really fun for us. And that also got us new donors, because they were telling the story with their circles of influence, which are folks that maybe have heard of us or maybe have seen us on the sidelines, but we were able to kind of loop them in and have them be part of the story that their friend, family, loved one was telling. And so that was really effective for us to be able to bring in some new folks who maybe wanted to be involved, but they just never were asked. So we were able to do to do it that way. I also think having a number of entry points was really effective for us. We tend to skew towards an older demographic of donors, which is fantastic. And like I said, those donors have been with us for decades, but digital giving campaigns tend to engage a younger population and a population of folks that maybe don't have quite as much extra income. So we wanted to have really easy entry points for those folks, because a $10 donation in a giving campaign can continue to grow into you know, a $100 donation, $100 a month donation, and on from there. So that type of relationship and sort of the long view of those small gifts in a giving campaign was important for us as well.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. We're seeing that in some of the early reports for even early 2021, that small level donors, that's $100 or less, or lower level donors, that's increasing. So the more you can attach value and impact to those lower numbers, like you said, you know, that $10 really does make a difference. And so creating those opportunities for people to connect with you and to say it doesn't matter what you have to give, or even thinking beyond dollars, like the campaign share or volunteerism. I think Susie pointed out, you know, Giving Tuesday, especially as a movement, tries to highlight not just giving, but giving with dollars. You can give with your time, you can give with your voice. And so thinking about ways that you can create more points of entry, as you said, is so important. And thinking about who you want to reach that you aren't now. So whether that's an age group or demographic group, if that's a certain regional area, and thinking about where their values are, where their pain points or stuck points are, you know, asking just that simple question of why haven't they engaged before, and how can we create that access, whatever that means, that point of entry. Anybody else in the room have any particular strategies or tactics that they have found helpful when trying to engage new donors? Or questions about any of the things we've been talking about so far? We've got one. What platforms? Oh, I lost it. Well, here, I'll go this way. Emily, thank you. At Erie, we utilize Facebook donation campaigns heavily for Giving Tuesday, but our main platform is Classy. Emily, would you share a little more on maybe the differences between the two? And I assume you use both because Facebook's really easy, but Classy is maybe more rich in data, but not sure if you're able to join us.
Hi, sure. I work at Erie Family Health Centers in Chicago on the development team. And we usually just use Classy as our main page with all of our information about what we're raising funds for and all of that. And then yes, it does have it's very easily connected to our Raiser's Edge, which is helpful. But because Classy also has really good integration with Facebook, it makes it really easy to share from that platform. And I believe the donations can actually go on to Classy as well, from Facebook. So I think all of the integration is something that's really great for us.
Yeah, thanks for that. And it kind of preempted the question, Lillian, thank you for asking, which was what are the platforms that others are using for their campaigns? I know the communications guide Susie shared was from GiveGab, which is who Forefront used to partner with for our All Give campaign. They're an excellent platform and an affordable platform with a lot of resources. Kaylee, I think you were using Give Lively last year. I don't know if you're still using that.
Yeah, we used Give Lively for our Giving Day campaign last year, and we really liked it. It was a really easy platform to use. It was easy for our stakeholders to set up their own peer-to-peer giving campaigns and to create corporate teams on there as well. It also has a text to give feature that we really liked using. And the nice thing about it is that it's a pretty robust platform and it is free. It's funded by private funding, so that it's free for nonprofits to use, which was really beneficial for us in that we did have to make this pivot for 2020. So we do still use it. We use it for our public concerts and any text to give that we need to set up, we have that. And then all of our donation forms for Festival of Trees, our major event and the event that I am in charge of. We use it for that as well. So we find it pretty user friendly. We did do some Facebook just because a lot of folks are used to that. It's easy to set up a Facebook campaign. So some people did that, but we really tried to direct people to Give Lively so we could collect as much information on our donors as possible.
Thank you. Anybody else use another platform? We know there's a lot out there. It's always helpful to have firsthand experience kind of sharing what works and what doesn't. And we'll wait to see if anybody wants to ask a question or chime in. I'll add to that whatever platform you do use, because there are so many out there that I think are robust and affordable, if not free, for nonprofits. Hopefully by now, whatever you're using, you're really keeping mobile integration and mobile readiness kind of at the forefront of your preferences and requirements when you're going through and thinking about what platform you want to use, because it's everybody's got, right? Not everybody, but most people have a smartphone or some kind of phone. And what we're seeing is more and more interactions happening through a mobile device. And I can look this up, but it's something like 60% of all online donations that have been made in the last 12 months were originated from a cell phone or some kind of mobile device. So as you go through and you're thinking about either what you're currently using or what the donor experience is now, what your current donor experience is, keep that in mind. Make sure that you're going through the process on your phone and you're seeing whether or not even just your website is adjusting to those the size of text. You know, if you've got a lot of text and it gets really small on a cell phone, right? That's going to be hard to follow. If you have to look for, if you have to scroll very far, just think about how you like to engage when you're on your mobile devices. And that's a great way, I think, to activate your board or some of your volunteers to say, hey, we'd really like to know what this experience is like. Would you be willing to make a test donation or go through the donation process and provide some feedback? Maritza, thank you. Our main platform is FlipCause, which allows us to create a campaign landing page. Does anyone have experience with Venmo? I like the idea of exploring that as an option this year. I don't know a whole lot about Venmo donations. So if anybody's got any experience with that in the room, would love to hear how you're using it. No Venmo users yet. So when we find out, we'll report back to each other and we'll share how it went. I do know that more and more donors are interested in a variety of payment options. So it used to be, you know, paying online was like the thing as opposed to a check or a cash donation. Online is just simply not enough anymore. They want the option, you know, Kaylee, I think you even said it, if I could pay with Apple Pay, right? So that's another thing to think about when you're considering platforms or evaluating the one that you've used in the past is, do you have other online payment options like Apple Pay, like a digital wallet options, Venmo, or, oh, I can't think of what the other ones even are. I'm such a Venmo, I'm such a Venmo person. Cash App, I think, is another one. I will say, just as a note on that, and I can share more information if anybody's interested. I do know there are certain limitations or regulations that have been put forward by those apps in terms of collecting donations, because people have been using them in the past to kind of bypass processing fees and certain requirements. So make sure that you are considering what the intention of those apps are, and just asking that question, is it okay to collect donations on certain platforms? Some of them you might be surprised to find either have a separate platform that they want to do that on, or that there are other regulations or limitations. Any other general questions that you have about your own campaigns coming up, or questions for Kaylee or Evan on what worked for their campaign? All right. I'm not seeing any come in on the chat. I am curious, something we talked about in our past campaigns was this idea of success and how you define success for your campaigns. And that's the big debate, right? Is Giving Tuesday worth it? Is it worth doing a digital campaign? So either in the chat or maybe in a reaction with like a thumbs up or I don't know if there's a sad face. I think there is. If you have found that your past campaigns are successful, or if you're one of the people that's kind of sitting on the fence going, is it worth it? Should we consider it? Maybe I'll say, to clarify that, give me a thumbs up if you think Giving Tuesday, if you're excited about Giving Tuesday this year and you think it's going to be worth it. And if not, don't put anything. Anita, it is not our most successful day, but we do participate. Anita, would you be willing to share a little bit on?
Sure. Excuse me. So we're a small nonprofit organization, and we work with unemployed mid-career professionals. And we don't have the most sexy population. I've worked at a drug treatment center where we had children, and that was an easy sell, so to speak. Ours is not. Sympathy for the middle class is quite limited. I will say that the Giving Tuesday they had, what was it, back in like May of last year? That was a big one for us. That's probably the best we've had since 2014. The one that's in around the holidays in November, December, not typically. I think there's too much competition. And if you are dealing with like children and animals, I think it's, knock it out of the park. In my experience in working at prior agencies. So we do participate, we do promote it, we do use their, package of, images and things like that. But among our donors, I don't think it really resonates. Plus our donors tend to be 50s, 60s, 70s, kind of given our population. And I'm not sure they're really tracking on this campaign. So that's just a few of my observations. We tend to do better on days that are not this heavily publicized. Like, even like the day before Thanksgiving is huge for us compared to Giving Tuesday. So I don't know. That's just my experience.
No, thank you for sharing that. Is there something about your messaging on that day leading up to that, or is it maybe more relevant? Is that a special day for your organization, or?
Well, we put things out to support our campaign throughout the campaign, including Giving Tuesday. I think there's too much competition with more sympathetic causes like children, animals, pit bulls. And our board senses, you know, our friends want to like give to, you know, like a charity for children or what have you. They associate it with much more maybe dramatic causes than
Mm.
jobs for middle class people. So I don't know. They don't, our board just, they, again, they're older and they just don't quite, they're like, yeah, whatever. So, and our clients are, who are now our donors, um, I just don't think it's a, maybe it's resonating more with a younger population. I don't know, but I am just not, it is by far not our best day,
Mhm.
except for last year.
On
Last
the
year
Giving
got,
Tuesday Now campaign.
yeah, it's, yeah, last year when they had that early one, like in May or something, we had a
Mhm.
good bounce from that, but that's like the first one ever where we got a decent amount of money.
Was it primarily new donors, or was it your older donors kind of stepping up, older,
Giving
your
Tuesday,
current
when
donors?
there's activity of any decent amount, tends to be repeat donors. I don't
Mhm.
see like prospects. It doesn't seem to resonate with our prospects. I don't know why. Um, but we do better with our prospects like closer to Christmas and Thanksgiving. If you look at their
Mhm.
patterns, Giving Tuesday has nothing to do in terms of generating new donors for us. It's simply had zero effect. It's more likely to stimulate repeat donors.
That is common. That what I mean, you know, Susie had shared those benchmarks before, right? 75% of donors on Giving Tuesday are returning donors,
Yep.
which I think is such an interesting number to think about, that this is a chance for you to maybe re-engage current donors. I'm curious, Wilma, you said that you agreed with Anita. I'm curious what your goals are for those days. So is it not your most successful day in terms of raising money? And is that the only goal that you have on that day? Or are you thinking about other ways to kind of use the noise of Giving Tuesday to propel other maybe strategic goals or even organizational goals? Something we've talked about in past campaigns was this notion of maybe it's not like you realize, hey, we're probably not going to raise a lot of money, but we've got a lot of resources. It could be a little bit of a light lift, but maybe we could use this to work on our internal communications or building out some graphics or collecting stories. So really thinking about what are those goals and how are you defining success? And anybody can answer that. And Wilma, if you want to share what maybe some of your frustrations have been, or if there's others who see it differently or use Giving Tuesday differently, use it for different goals.
I'll just chime in again and say I think it's important to participate so you're seen in the mainstream of giving. I
Mm,
think it's a valuable thing to stimulate thinking about it amongst your renewing, you know, donors. We typically start our campaign early, like mid-October,
mhm.
and see most of our activity November, December, early January. So I think it's important to participate because everybody else is. I think it keeps us in the forefront of people's thinking.
Mm.
But I think you have to manage your expectations.
I would agree with that. Let me check the chat here.
Well, Lily,
Anybody?
I see that Danielle asked about ways for a very small staff to
Mhm.
um, manage a complex campaign. And I think I just wanted to say, Danielle, that because the Giving Tuesday, the national organization provides all these graphics, you can use them for your, it doesn't have to be a complex campaign. If you are strapped with for capacity to create your own campaign, you can build off of what they've provided. And the graphics are available in Canva. There's a whole package in Canva, and they're free. So you don't have to do the paid Canva to use what they have. And Canva is actually pretty intuitive to use to build your own things and upload your own logo and put them on, impose them on the graphics that are there for you to use. And so that's a good way to get started, because you don't have to come up with the campaign. You can build off of one that's there for you for that purpose.
They've also got Giving Tuesday has some other resources like a timeline, a checklist, so some of the things you might want to think about. Susie in the chat before she stepped away also shared that communication guide. So it's not just a timeline, it is providing some sample templates that you can use for some, maybe an email communication or social media post ideas. And so I think, yeah, I love Canva, Danielle, me too. Canva is great. So you can take some of those and, Anita, I think you put it very nicely, manage your expectations to say, what can I feasibly do? How much time can I set aside each week, each day? Can I give an hour a week? Or, we're, 6 weeks out now? And actually, I think it's Network for Good or Classy. It's one of the fundraising platforms actually have 6 weeks to Giving Tuesday. If you're just now starting, what you can do on a budget and limited time. So I definitely think there's some resources and support out there for you. And of course, you can watch all of Forefront's past webinars too, if you're looking for some ideas on campaign language or some goals that you could set. Tiernan, I am one of a 2-person staff. I use the Instagram story feature to modify most of my graphics. They were very low quality and last minute looking, but came across to my audience is endearing. Nice. I don't have a lot of experience with Instagram, so I'm curious if you could share, if you'd be willing to share a little more about that, or if anybody else is using Instagram and what kind of success you're seeing for fundraising, or if you've used it for Giving Tuesday or a Giving Day specifically, or Twitter, any of the other platforms. We spend a lot of time talking about Facebook, but there's a lot out there.
Yeah, I mean, I use Instagram because it's where my friends are, and we're a 2-person staff. My friend and I co-founded a nonprofit a couple years ago, and so a lot of our donors are just people in our existing personal and professional networks, and those people are on Instagram. So we just post to Instagram, and I do think there's something to be said for putting together a really polished and professional looking campaign at times. And for Giving Tuesday, we've found, especially like acknowledging that it's last minute, it's something we've always done kind of last minute. It's something where we want to get in on this big day and invite people in with us. We've had a surprising amount of success with the acknowledgement that, like, look, we're small. We don't have all the resources that everyone else has. We're not going to pretend we have all the resources or the time that everyone else has to put together a really polished campaign, but here's what we've got. And especially because that is going to people who know us personally, that candor, I think, is something that's appreciated in the fundraising space. And we've done very well on Giving Tuesday for an organization of our size. So I do think it's something that resonates with younger donors.
I love that. I think that is knowing who you're appealing to and also being authentic about who you are and what, where your resources can go. And let's be honest, something like that has more of an opportunity, I think, many times to be shared or to go viral or to appeal to to resonate differently with the donor base. And so I think that's awesome. I do. I think that's great. And I'm glad you shared that with us.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's fantastic. I am an avid Instagram user, and I will say that I am often influenced by my circles and the people that I follow on Instagram to do whatever they're, whatever they're invested in, especially if it's someone that I know personally and they're, trying to raise money for a campaign, they're working on a campaign, they're doing something that makes me want to engage with it because it's someone that I know and that I care about, and I want to be part of something bigger. So I love that Instagram has been useful for you in that way. And for myself, I in my personal Instagram, I have our giving link in there still from our giving campaign because we still use it for donations. So I figured why not have the link in my profile to our giving campaign to allow folks to be able to support our organization as well. So I think that could be really effective.
And
Yeah.
I just want to add one more thing, Lily, I was invited recently to a Giving Tuesday kind of workshop. And the main message for this workshop was that you should do a massive mailing for Giving Tuesday to hundreds and thousands of people. I don't work for an organization that has that capacity. Like the postage would be too much for us just alone, forget the printing. And so Tiernan's comment also speaks to the idea of knowing what you can do and doing that well and effectively, as opposed to trying to fit a template that other people are trying to impose on for you. So I get that needing to adapt to be authentic and reasonable to what you can actually accomplish.
I love that, needing to adapt to be authentic. That's so important, I think, in everything that we do. And Jessica, thank you for your comment. Most reports have been showing lately that Instagram is growing much faster than Facebook. That's where most folks are if you are trying to reach people under 40. Yeah, I was just watching Nate Burleson on CBS this morning interview his daughter and about social media, and he asked if she used Facebook, and she said, no, that's for grandmas. So it's just about thinking, again, going back to that notion of what are you trying to accomplish? Who is the audience you're trying to reach? And what are the tools and strategies that are actually going to help you do that? Just like anything else in our work, thinking strategically, and Evan, I like what you just said, thinking about what you can do authentically, on a budget, not just what you should do, but really, really what you're capable of. So yeah, if you're trying to reach younger, newer donors, and Facebook is still your top platform, it might be time to branch out and try new things. And I always think that's one of the best benefits of participating in Giving Tuesday. If you can kind of manage those expectations and say, this is an opportunity to try new things, to learn something about ourselves and our donors or prospective donors, then you can maybe set aside a little time, pick up some tricks, and then just over time kind of grow that skill set. So I think Giving Tuesday is a great testing ground for new ideas or new platforms. Any other questions that are coming up for people? Issues that are standing in your way as you're building your own campaigns? Questions that are coming up? All right. Please, if you think of anything, feel free to fill it in the chat with our last few minutes. Evan and Kaylee, anything that you would like to add or last thoughts? We'll happy to give everybody some time back if we feel like we've gotten what we need out of our discussion today. But any final thoughts or something you'd like everybody to walk away with?
I thank you for including us today and allowing me the opportunity to share the graphics that we created. And also just to let everyone know that I don't think anyone's cracked the code. I think we're all kind of in a process. And even when you figure out something effective, it's going to change next year. You know, if it's COVID or if it's some other external factor or just the need to refresh. So it's nice to have community and to share ideas and to not feel like we're all competing, but rather that we're trying to help. We're all helping each other do better. So if you're struggling, rest assured, you're not alone.
That's such
Yeah,
a
I just
helpful
wanna-
reminder.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, I think trying to fundraise in this season and in this way. So just thank you for having me. Thank you for hearing me gush about how great our donors are and just what an honor it is to be part of this group of nonprofit professionals who are doing this work in Illinois. And it was fantastic to be able to learn from you all and get some inspiration from you. So I just want to, I just want to say thank you for energizing me and kind of encouraging each other as we go forward, and that we're all in this together. So everything that we are chatting about and learning each year to get just a little bit better makes our community a better place and increases just our ability to be able to make a difference. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you both. It's been wonderful hearing about some of your creative ideas, and we hope that it's been helpful to all of you. As a parting parting gift, if I can share my screen here, gonna make me go through this whole thing. We do have some resources for you. We will share this PowerPoint slide out with you, and Kaylee and Evan, if you don't mind us sharing yours, we'd be happy to share those with others, as well as a link to this recording. But for those of you who are still kind of looking for some tips or additional resources, we've got some digital giving reports. If you're looking for some benchmarks and some data points, the Blackbaud Institute's 2020 Charitable Giving Report is really full of valuable information, as well as Giving Tuesday's impact report. And if you're looking for some tools to actually help you get started, we've got some toolkits here that you can easily access. And don't forget, on November 10th, we've got our final Giving Tuesday checklist, which is the last gathering in our digital giving series. So we can all check in, see what where you're still struggling, what you're really proud of, and make sure that you have everything you need to have the best Giving Tuesday or Giving Day for your organization. So with that, thank you again, everybody. We hope to see you again soon, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoon.